build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance to spit in his eye. Oh, well, they gave me ball, but I can see between to a dusty yard and a long gone green. They call that freedom, if you know what I mean. And I dry my sorrows, but the whiskey's gone. I'm sober as good.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Longbangers. I'm Matty. This is episode 130. Hello.
Hello.
I'm joined tonight by who have we got tonight? Jamie. Jamie, how you doing, mate? Happy New Year. This is your first appearance on the podcast of the new year, so Happy New Year to you, mate.
Aye, Happy New Year to you all. I'm missing the football big time, it's good to be said, so I'm looking forward to tonight's chat to at least get a wee bit into something about how well this January is going for us, in my opinion.
Aye, well, we'll come on to that in a wee minute. It's brutal when they football to watch. In fact, seeing that, got the Man United Aston Villa game on in the background, so if you kind of see me turning around every now and again, it's because something very interesting is happening over my shoulder. Colin, you're with us tonight, as always. How you doing?
Good. There's been that much football on it. Doesn't feel like it's just Hibs that's missing, isn't it?
This is true.
I don't know, weekend was so much football for Friday night right through to Sunday night.
It's a bit boring watching England games with just 500 fans in the way. It's not the same.
It's mad. I was saying about at work today. They lives down there saying it's mental because FA Cup there's huge crowds and there's no masks in sight and it's just rammed.
Everybody drinking.
It's mental.
I kind of didn't really get going on anyway. There was noises, and I never looked into the thread because it was the Daily Record that tweeted it. But they were saying that they were looked likely that they were going to extend the restrictions on football fans. And I was like, probably for the first time in the whole pandemic, I was like, fuck that. Just let us get, you've got the vaccines and everything. Let us just go to at least let us make the choice as adults now. Let people do it. And you're seeing full cinemas or theatres and fucking shops and all the rest of it. Let us go to fucking football.
I didn't know that. Is that tomorrow? The announcement's usually Tuesday. The thing, but
it's the announcement's not to the 17th.
They've not said that's definitely happening. It was a Daily. I've taken that for a clickbait thing on the Daily Record's Twitter, which I didn't click on because they're shit.
It's a clickbait. I just think it is basically now just football fans though, because the horse racing the other day, the Musselburgh was no spectators, but other than that, there's nothing really affected by these limits, is there? It's just Premier League football. So if it's just Premier League football, is it?
It's sporting events, isn't it? Sporting events.
How many of them get more than 500? Like,
is it sporting events or outdoor events? Just to be
outdoor events, I think. Aye, you're probably right, John. Anyway, I'm not introduced you yet, John. How are you doing?
I'm alright, aye. Got a wee bit of a sore knee and I'm doodling away on my graph paper. You can't see my doodles because I've got some passwords written down here, which is fucking ironic because I'm in cyber security. No, I'm studying it anyway. And one of these things. If you've
written them down, it's fine. Just didn't put them on your computer screen.
Aye.
Did you draw a hobby? Is that what your graffiti was?
Well, no, but I will. Throughout the course of the conversation, I'm going to draw a massive cock and I'm going to put it on the screen.
And the style of graph.
To bask in. Aye. I don't know how I'm going to do it square-wise. It's going to be a bit... I'm not the best artist in the world, but we'll give it a go.
Used to, one of my old jobs, they did for data protection and that, they stopped having folk having notepads because in one of the global sites, somebody ran down loads of customer details and the notepad taken out of the building, sold it, right? There was a big kind of breach about it. So then they clamped down on it. And initially they gave everybody a wee whiteboard and a dry board marker. And so you could write whatever you were doing on that and then wipe it out. And then for your next customer, you start again. So you couldn't get any information on it. But they were brilliant for drawing Boabies on. If somebody left it on a desk, you had to do it. And then they did something about that. They were like, right, that's not working. So you got a numbered book that got audited by your manager every other month or whatever. And again, if somebody left that, I had one boy who was always there, a boy called Brian, we were really good pals, would go a few pages in and draw one for him to find later. So, and then you'd be sitting watching and he'd be like speaking to a customer or whatever, and then you'd see him with his book turning over to write something down and just, for fuck's sake, looking over. But the best ones we did were the conference room where they would hold training and meetings and stuff, and if somebody left a flip chart in there, you would turn, because this was like a high risk strategy, high risk, high reward. you would draw a Bobby a few pages in on the flip chart, and you know, you might not be there for it getting unveiled, but it could have been anybody. It could be like a director, it could be centre manager, it could just be plebs like myself that would have found it. Brilliant. You just had to just know like on it as you that done it. Now the secret's out. Didn't date anymore.
That is mental that they spent all that money though on whiteboards, individual whiteboards and audited notebooks, time of a manager checking it just because one person broke the rules that they made. It's like deal with that one person rather than fucking it up for everybody else and spending a fortune, eh?
Aye, well, I think they thought it probably could happen again. It was right. It doesn't matter. There was like a time where it was like a lot of criminal activity around trying to get customer details, and they would blackmail members of staff and threaten their families and stuff like that to go and get involved with it. Because obviously folk wouldn't normally willingly do it, but they would do it under pressure. We had to do training about social engineering and everything like that. Kind of folk try to befriend you out in the kind of if you're at the guile or something and somebody tried to make friends with you. Basically, they were like, be wary of that person trying to make friends with you because further down the line, they'll try to find out enough about you to threaten you so that you do what you want them to do and sell them customer details.
Then I talk to Nay cunt when you're out.
Aye.
Bobby art is definitely a dying phase anyway, because you definitely get the sack for that now.
Aye, you probably would. I remember doing the school run one time. We came around the corner for the house, and the kids were still quite wee, and somebody had done them in coloured chalk on the path up the road. And Jane kind of looking at me, and I had to protest my innocence. Like it wasn't me. I didn't do it. I wish I had.
I'm more a crayon kind of guy.
I'm very crayons. Right. Anyway, what we're talking about tonight. So, a couple of things to talk about tonight. We will talk about the signings because it was just announced. Rocky. His name's just gone. Bashiri. Thank you.
Bashiri.
Tonight, and we have the other signings that were announced earlier. We can quickly talk about it, and then we're going to look at Ron Gordon. So last week we reviewed the players, rated them out of 15 for the season so far. Ron Gordon we'll talk about tonight, and we'll sort of benchmark him against his vision at the 2020 AGM. So he's had a couple of years to deliver on some of the promises or plans there. Obviously, COVID's played a part in that, but we'll assess how we're doing and how we're looking. So, first up, signings. Jamie, you were itching to kind of get talking about the football, so start with you. Which of the signings stands out for you?
I think Melkerson stands out for me as being the most exciting. I know he was in their second tier, like their championship last year, but still scored a heavy amount of goals. I was reading the comments for Vida Riseth in the paper the other day. They're saying that loads of teams wanted them in Norway. And it seems like we've managed to get a wee bit of a coup in the laddie. So if it's he's coming to us to try and obviously look further down the line and maybe move to the Premiership, you want to sort of get him in and show what he's doing and have a good selling value because he's got quite a long contract, 4.5 years, I think. So yeah. He's the one that excites me the most. And I just hope that he delivers on the good experiences that he's had over in Norway and he can score goals and show what he's made of.
I don't know if anybody's listened to Strong Opinion Hibs podcast this week. They had
Reindeer hot dog.
Reindeer hot dog, thank you.
That's right.
I keep wanting to call them Norwegian Rantlers for some reason, but reindeer hot dog. They had a really good episode actually. He was kind of explaining or telling us a wee bit about the player Elias Melkerson. I keep wanting to call him Hallberg, because of Melker Hallberg. He came what I'm like for names and being bad for them. His name's going to cause me all sorts of problems. I can see it already. But he, Colin, you said you listened to it. He was kind of quite enthusiastic about how Melkerson will do. What kind of stood out for you?
It was just he's saying he can shoot for anywhere really. That was because we've not got that like at the moment, have we? But that's been something I've been moaning about for ages. Like we didn't get enough goals for other parts of the team, and we always have midfield that are unwilling at times to shoot. So somebody's going to pop shots away for 25, 30 yards, and that'll be good. What did stand out is though, it's a bit mental that you pick Norway as a country to go and take. He's interested in stats and analysis. The boy said so. He goes, "I'll pick Norway." Like, what the fuck? How did you do that? Like, that's mental, absolutely nuts. But well done.
Is he Scottish or anything, the guy? I never heard the interview.
English,
English.
I think, yeah.
And does he live in Norway?
No,
No,
don't
he's
think
just
so.
stats.
Just does stats. All right.
Just interested in it. It's well worth it. Listen, I would recommend going and having a wee go. John, Rocky Bashiri come in today. What do you make of that signing?
I'll be honest, never heard of him before. Don't know anything about him. I might have made a wee mistake earlier in reading a tweet that suggested that he was a left centre back, and I suggested that he was being brought into Hibs to give Hanlon a boot up the hole, but apparently he's right-footed. So this is as much as I know.
That
Nothing.
left and right centre back. I kind of spoke about before. It drives me crazy. Your centre, you should.
Jamie, I've
Shouldn't even
spoken
move
about
the
that
matter.
before. We're on the same one when we said that, because I was like, that doesn't happen in midfield and that. You didn't go, oh, Joe Newell's your left centre midfielder, or do you? I don't know. Is it a Championship manager thing, or is it an actual thing? Like,
it might be a thing it might be something in our consciousness because Hanlon is left-footed, and that might be the only reason for it. But
It drives me mental because if you're centre, if you're playing left back or left midfield, then obviously it makes a difference. But if you're centre, it shouldn't really matter. But that's just my opinion. It's just a thing. It's a crazy thing to balance out a team, especially a team like Hibs. Would you pass over someone who is better than the person you've got just because he's not playing with a left or right foot?
That appears to be the suggestion, but that's what I didn't really understand. Because it's, as I say, defence might be different because they're trying to make them footballers and all that, rather than defenders. That's it's all about playing out for the back and coming onto the byline because that's what Barcelona done 20 years ago and all that, all that stuff. And so I don't know if it's to do with that. Whereas in midfield, you maybe get away with a bit more because you're further forward. So it doesn't matter if you're right-footed playing on the left side of the centre. I don't know. Way beyond my level of knowledge.
Did other teams in Scotland do that? Like, has every team got a left footer and a right footer in their centre of defence? You can.
Yeah, they talk about McCarthy's and Johnston being left-footed to Kerr's right, don't they? But I've no idea about Aberdeen or Hearts or no idea.
No.
You don't need feet when you're at Hearts. You just need bobtail boots.
Ewan Henderson. George, you know any more about Ewan Henderson than you do about Rocky?
I know that he wore a house strip on the Royal Mile after Hibs won the Cup. I know that he's Liam Henderson's brother, and there's every chance that he also went to Queen Margaret, St Margaret's in Livingston, but I'm speculating on that third point. I really don't know.
I'm wondering if he's going to move in round the corner for me because Liam's got a house round the corner, but I wonder if he's got to.
It's funny you say that, Colin, because I was going to suggest that you maybe just go out to the training fields nearby and see if you can catch him and have a wee individual session and just ask him to come on the podcast.
Out the window.
He's pre-season. Well, your sister might be nearer him though, Matthew. So maybe it's one for to keep an eye on.
I'll go on that. I'll send her some photos and say, go and keep an eye out for this boy. What about you, Jamie? What do you make of Ewan Henderson coming in? You got high hopes for him? That's an obvious question. Of course, we've all got high hopes for all of them. How do you think he'll get on? It's probably a better question to ask you.
To be honest with you, I've only know what I've read, kind of deal, but he certainly sounds like an exciting player, can get forward, shoot, score goals, make things happen. I thought he was actually coming into the picture at Celtic, so I don't know how his event managed to get out, because I'm pretty sure he started playing under Brendan Rodgers, and I thought he would kind of kick on for there, and it's never been materialised, but he scored against Betis this season as well, so it was a decent enough goal. I think he'll be a good signing. But as I say, I've not seen enough of him. Just where does that leave Kyle McGuinness? Because ultimately they sound kind of similar in terms of types of player. So unless we are changing our shape and taking Newell or Doyle Hayes or either selling one of them, I just don't know how the setup's going to be in midfield going forward. Because it certainly looks exciting if you're going to play with the attacking talent in McGuinness, Henderson, Mueller, Boyle, if he's still there. Just didn't understand where they're all going to fit in. We
need a squad as well. I think the thing with Henderson is that I'm hoping he's going to be good, but he's not played very much. He's 20, and if you compare him to McGuinness, I've just looked McGuinness up. He's about a year and a half older. He's played 5 times as many first team games as him already. This Henderson, he's in 109 first team games. Henderson's 20, and that's at Dunfermline, and 8 at Celtic. Dunfermline, and was it Ross County, the other loan?
County as well,
He's got a bit to prove. I think McGuinness is still the pole position for that position, if you like, at my eyes anyway, based on experience and what he's actually done as a first team player. Henderson's the trainee.
I think the point you're making about needing the squad though is quite pertinent, because actually look at the options that then gives you, because you kind of rattled off a few names there, Jamie, but you imagine one of them drops form at the moment, that player stays in the team regardless, but now they could take them off at half time and bring on somebody who's not really going to weaken the team.
Absolutely. Take the McGuinness as the example. McGuinness went out the team and we just lost all creativity.
Aye.
All attacking, and we put a guy in there, but he's not an attacking player. Whereas now you could say, well, are you injured? Right, we'll put Henderson in, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So,
but even if you're looking at the team there, so you had guys that were on the bench anyway, like say your Murphys and Scott Allens, what have you, looking to make a super sub kind of entrance. What's going to happen with them, because they're even further down the pecking order as it would sort of appear. But again, I think there'll be people going out. I think looks like Halberg will probably be away. I would expect Boyle to go. Not that I want to see him go, not by any stretch of the imagination, but these things are just gathering pace, and it's a long time before the close of the window. And I probably would expect Scott Allen, Gogic, and possibly another in that midfield area to go as well. So because I think we've got heavy numbers in that area. So I just need to wait and see.
And Harry Clark is the other one that's come in, Colin. He's having a good season at Ross County. We've got him on a season and a half long loan, a couple of break clauses that they pointed out for some reason.
It's funny how those, like, when you find out like little snippets of contracts, because that's the first time that I've ever heard anything like that before. Like normally there's usually a sort of unspoken, they can be recalled at any time kind of thing, but never like after 30 days, 60 days and 90 days.
Aye, it's weird that it was quite explicit. Maybe it's because it was the length of the contract, wasn't it? So that it was a season and a half. So
it's weird as well, because I can't imagine, like, I know that he played against Hibs at the start of the season, but I don't imagine that Arsenal would be in any great hurry to recall him. Like, no disrespect to Harry Clark or Arsenal or that. I just don't imagine that he's going to be that high on the radar.
Did you see them yesterday?
Oh, who was it they got? Beat Bay. I was not in Forest.
Not in Forest.
Well, they shit.
Easily beat. Aye, they were. But I don't know much about the laddie. Even though he's played against us, I don't remember him. But he could play centre half and right back. Is that right, or is it just a right centre back?
Is he a right-footed left centre half? Left-footed right centre half?
But I don't know. I think he's right-footed because he can. I don't know if it's right back or right centre half he is, but it definitely need. That's what I've been saying for long enough. We need 2 centre halves in this window, so I'm glad we've got 2.
In his interview, he said he wanted to play right back because he feels he was limited at centre half. That's his words, not mine.
But it depends, I suppose. If he does the 3 at the back, then he might be on the right of a 3 with Porteous in the middle and whoever the left footer is on the left. And then that would be, he would still be out there because I can't see him being a wing back or anything. Like, I think it would be either right of a 3 or.
No, he wants to play wing back.
He wants to play wing back. So he's not going to give me. You think he'll give me heady cadding?
I don't know. It'll depend how he does in training and that. Again, it's a squad game, isn't it? You're going to have to take these players in and out of the team.
Yeah.
And Boyle, Jamie, you mentioned looks like he might be on his way out of the club. There's talk of a club from Abu Dhabi.
Al Fayali, something along the lines.
Saudi Arabia.
Was it? £2 million being rejected. Talk of life-changing money for Boyle. Anybody begrudge him his move if he got it?
No. I see loads of people on Twitter and everything going on that his wife's a Scottish international, plays for Hibs, they've got a kid, blah, 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 blah. His wife wouldn't go with him. This seems to be kind of standard practice now. You didn't move your family to places like that. Gary O'Connor, when he went to Moscow, didn't have his family there, he was himself. Went for the money. And it'd be an extremely tough place to play football, I would imagine. But I mean, it's life changing though. Eh?
What
I
they're
mean,
talking, wages.
talk about a million a year tax free is what they were saying.
Right.
Do you think, Colin, you could see yourself in a sunny country with £1 million a year away from the missus for a wee period of time?
I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. I can't imagine much of the million being left by the time I got back. Yeah.
What are you going to spend it on, like?
Well, wouldn't it be bevy right enough, would it? Because
no, there.
Trips to
Maybe on,
Dubai.
maybe on buckets for all your sandcastles you'll build.
But that's you're just purely going there to cash in, aren't you? Just take the money. But I would think I was talking about that last week. My brother-in-law, I reckon 3 million is about the top whack we would get for him with his age and.
I think it's about right. 3 million seems reasonable.
Ish, 5.
And I reckon that's why we gave him the new contract. It was like, go and buy it. Let us buy you to the 500 grand thing. We'll bump your wages up, double your wages, treble, whatever they've done to his wages, and we'll punt you on as soon as we get a biddy that we're happy with over 2.5 plus or whatever. Yeah.
Aye. Which I think that's the right way for Hibs to do business. Really, if you've got a sellable asset, you keep them for as long as you can, and when it's time for them to move on, you make sure you get as much money as you can for them.
In addition to having a replacement for them and not doing something like Gary O'Connor, like Jamie mentioned, and punting them to fucking Moscow the week before a final or week before a
semi-final. Aye.
And we no chance to buy anybody because the windows are shut. It's just because the Russian one was still open.
Aye. And you would say we have got cover now if Boyle went. It's not like we're short in that position anymore. If everybody's fit.
Yep.
Right, so the next thing we're going to look at then, and probably the bulk of this episode, we'll be talking about Ron Gordon and his stewardship of the club so far. So we're going back to 2020 at the AGM, and I'm looking at some notes that have been posted on Hibs.net. And I remember being at this AGM. I don't know if any of you were there.
I think you and I had a conversation about it afterwards, Matt. It was just me and you. We had a blather.
I think we did a podcast about it.
You did.
I'm sure we did. But I remember coming away very enthused about the direction that the club were going. Very impressed. Tumescent. Very impressed with what Ron Gordon had said. But you had that question mark about, well, is it all talk? And let's see what he actually delivers. So I've kind of screenshot some notes that folk have been posting from it. And I think we'll discuss them, the bullet points, see where we are, and then at the end we'll have a score out of 15 for Ron Gordon, like we did with the players. So the first one, I've got 3 points here. Aim to be the best football club in Scotland on and off the pitch. Our goal was to make our fans in the city proud and never forget we play to serve our community. So, John, aim to be the best football club in Scotland on and off the pitch. Where would you say we were towards that one?
So are we judging the 2020 AGM comments based on where we are now?
Yes. So how close are we to that goal?
Well, last year we finished third last season. This season, not entirely sure what that is. Being the best off the pitch, it's a wee bit of a woolly objective. Like who judges that? Like what's the criteria that you say we're the best off the pitch? I mean, if you're in a minority one and no one else is striving for that, then you could easily say, "I were the best," but there's no one else in that field. But at the same time, there is a lot of talk of Hibs in the community, so I do think that it is part of their thinking. Albeit, I think sometimes people mistake community for going to see Hibs being cheap tickets. Like part of the community, I should be able to go and see Hibs for a £5, no more than 20 quid. Say. I think probably overall, I think we're doing pretty well in terms of our aim to be the best on the pitch. Because, like I say, we had that good season last year. Things hadn't been working out quite as well this year, and action has been taken to remedy that in terms of I can't remember Graham Matthews' position. I know he's kind of the fall guy for the transfer activity, but also Jack Ross. He got the axe for not delivering results on the pitch either. This season, And actually, in the transfer window that we were just discussing there, we brought in quite a few players. So hopefully, they're going to be the ones that kind of push us towards finishing. Again, we're looking at third, looking at top four. And if you refer back to Ben Knows Everything's comments, I can't remember which, it was on the Hibs.net podcast, and he was talking about looking for that sustained, regular, plannable finish. Like, we're doing pretty well in that respect. Or sorry, we're hoping to do pretty well in that respect. So I think we're doing pretty well. Like, obviously, there's still room for improvement there, but it's doing pretty well.
Another cup final to throw into the mix as well, really, from last season into this one. Calling goals to make our fans in the city proud.
I'm not sure what that means either. Is that because I guess that's by winning games, eh? That's how, like, or is he meaning off the field?
No, I think it's just winning games. I would have thought there was like a wider sense of pride. So not just the sporting achievement, but when the club does things like the greenest club in Scotland, for example, was one that you could point to. It was a tangible, wasn't it? Like they can say, well, we'll be more environmentally friendly or carbon neutral or whatever they're going for. Then you have things like the food banks and things like that. Things that you think, well, that's good that the club are involved in.
The Christmas Day, they did the hot meals on Christmas Day as well, didn't they?
They were doing stuff with vaccines as well, weren't they? Like you could go and get a vaccine at Easter Road, and I suppose those kind of things come into play with it. Do you feel more proud at the club than you did 3 or 4 years ago?
No, not really. I thought they'd done the Christmas stuff like before he was here. That wasn't it. It's nothing new. The food banks, did the club organise them? Were they organised by fans? It used to be organised by fans. The old ones. I can't remember this year's one. So I don't feel any different to it. And that's probably where I went with the first ones at just results, because I kind of think I forgot about the Greenest Club thing, but all the other stuff isn't really the club that was doing that.
So I can throw a wee bit of weight behind some of that. So during lockdown and what have you, I know that Hibs were providing meals and food, fruit, etc. to schools because they were taking in my local school, which I thought was a good initiative. So as you can imagine, there'd be loads of kids kind of falling between the cracks and what have you. So they were going delivering food to these kids' doors and what have you, make sure they were getting a wee bit of nutrition. So that's some things that probably go unnoticed and unseen. But kind of what you're saying in terms of pride. But I didn't want to be too simplistic with this, but the pride for me in your football team is on the pitch. And I think that although probably held back with whatever's went on in summer, they're certainly looking to make inroads to that and make the club better and make them go in the right direction to try and achieve long-term goals, cups, challenge as close as you can. You're never going to be able to outspend those two, but if you can certainly do get the right players in and sustain a bit of a challenge, that's a huge bit of pride. It just depends on how we go. But I think they were going in the right direction in terms of pride and certainly being much more ambitious than we were previously.
I think it's one of these things that was probably impacted by COVID. I would like to think that because the club how do they describe it? They contracted at the time of COVID, so they kind of shed a load of staff, didn't they? Like I think they put folk on furlough or made people redundant, which isn't really something that you would make you proud of your club necessarily. But then they did it with a view to when the time was right, being able to expand and then re-employ people or employ new people and grow the club. But if you're having to shed staff, then prioritise what you're working on. It kind of limits the opportunities to do probably a lot of the things that they would have wanted to have got involved with. You've got things, I suppose, when you come into that about making our fans in the city proud, we turned down betting companies for shirt sponsors, but still appear to have, although not a main sponsor, we do have a betting company whose name escapes me. They're on the shorts or something like that, weren't they? Like,
is it Marsbet?
Marsbet, yes, it is. And then you had that Sport 'em on Go thing as well, which seemed to kind of kick it. So whether
They
that
gave
wage,
money back on that, eh? They've refunded.
aye, they did. So I think they're still going ahead with it, is what I understand. But I don't think that was received particularly well by supporters. In terms of being proud of it, that was probably like a kind of a minus. Was it whether folk just didn't get it or they didn't position it right or whatever? But it never landed, and folk were very kind of sceptical and critical of the club around that one. Next one's more tangible for you, John. You can take this one. Compete for top 4 finish and compete in Europe as a goal.
I'd say they achieved that objective, at least between 2020 and today. Finished third, had an early exit for Europe, and sure they would have wanted to go further. Didn't manage it through injuries, lack of players, fucking clumsy centre halves, right-footed or left-footed or otherwise. But no, I'd say they achieved that, and I think that's probably a good indication of future ambitions as well, and probably a sort of a lessons learned exercise, if you like, because they could look at that and say, right, where did we go wrong? And I think they've probably already done that in terms, like as I mentioned before, the departures for the club. So no, I'd say we would have liked to have gone further, but delivered.
European one, Colin, that's probably the most frustrating out of those two. Obviously, finishing third was brilliant. The reward for that is getting into Europe. But if you remember, and you will remember because you made the point and you've got a memory like an elephant when you make a point like this, you said on the podcast, you need numbers in. There's no
bodies.
And it just doesn't just have to be quality. We need quality and quantity because we need to compete.
Yep.
And actually, our downfall was having to rely on Darren McGregor. No harm McGregor meant by that, but had we bulked out the squad a wee bit, we would have coped better with the injuries or suspensions that we got at that time.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt about it. The transfer window was a total. That was the transfer window was a total failure, wasn't it, in the summer, and that impacted the European thing. But you can't argue with the compete for top 4 finish part. We're still doing that this season again, and that's the point is do it consistently, which Hibs haven't done before since the 60s and 70s and whatnot. You know what I mean? It's been like in our lifetimes, you get a third place finish and then that's you for 10 years, and then you get third place again or longer. It's not consistent, and that's how you compete in Europe, because you're there more often.
Yep.
And you get used to it, and you get the experience, and you get the money, and all that goes with it. It's not just a one-off every 10 years.
It's not a jolly. It's not a day out. Like it suddenly becomes part of
what you do.
Your year.
Aye.
He also signed better players, I think, and all on the back of that.
Yeah.
Aye. Do you think it's significant, Jamie, that we finished third last season and we didn't see the team decimated with transfer activity in the summer? So we held on
Absolutely,
to Nisbet, Boyle.
Yeah, but I think that re-signing the players on that obviously is a big statement of intent. I also think that because the window was so bad, they needed something along those lines to be basically to say to fans, we know the club we once were. You know, we're not just wanting to get rid of players, we want to keep these players as well, try and move on instead of just having a couple of good seasons with one player and then sell them, etc. We are building something. As I said, what you were saying with the Europe thing, you know, that again attracts better players, and even foreign players looking at the clubs thinking, I could play more regular in Europe with that team, and then can try and progress for there. But I totally agree with Colin. You've got to be more consistent with that kind of approach and finish. Obviously, you finished third this year. You get straight into the league stages of it. There's no qualifiers. But equally, I was listening to one of the guys down the slope. I think it was maybe you, and he was saying he would much rather win a couple of cups rather than consistently finish higher in the table. Why can you not just have both? I know it's like we've never been used to that kind of thing, but this is something we should be aiming for on a regular basis.
You think we're no kicking in our sofa? See, if you look at our cup record over the last few seasons, you're talking about a game. Do you know, like a half a football, even like the last cup game against Celtic. You know, a bit of luck goes our way, and that result was different. And then you have got European football and trophies. Has anybody actually seen somebody making a statement in a tent, by the way, ever?
Do you know, the statement of intent actually gets in my tits. It's one of those. It's one of those football cliches. It's just go and fuck off.
But
I don't know how many times I've
it is
heard of
applicable,
Hibs
though, isn't it?
making a
Like,
statement of intent. Fuck off.
I think you do when you make something like see some of the signings that we made. They are your cliche statement of intent. We've set our stall out. We're going for something here. That's exactly what it is. But anyway,
I don't know. Football just needs a new thesaurus, a new phrasebook.
yeah. Right. What about next one's increased turnover by 50% by 2023, or 100% by 2025, and 100% by 2025. So that's probably one of the biggest ones to have taken a kick in for COVID, you would think.
Yeah. You would have thought
absolutely.
so. We can't obviously assess it anyway because it's not 2023 yet, but the season ticket sales have probably dropped off a wee bit. There's a lot more sponsorship in, but I don't know how much money that's bringing in. You know, there's just sponsorship deals every few days at times, isn't there? The firing them out. I would have thought 50%. It's probably not going to reach that by 2023. But I'm just guessing.
A hard one to gauge, isn't it? Until we see the accounts. But I suppose one of the things that they will rely on will be gate receipts, and attendances haven't been great this season in comparison to what we've seen in recent times. Sort of post 2016, isn't it?
The season ticket sales is that they weren't that far off it. Pay at the gate is probably a lot worse, but then they wrapped the prices right up that much that I don't know if
might not have an impact.
It's quite high. How many people would pay at the gate at those prices? You know, like if you'd have to buy a season, they're almost driving you to buy a season ticket.
Aye.
But then one of the targets you've got to come on to, I think, is about season ticket numbers, isn't it?
It is. Aye. We'll come on to that.
So maybe that's a sort of strategy for that.
And then
we've
got this one, double player budget by 2023. So that's next year. So they would have wanted that from 2020 to 2023, doubling the player budget. So reading the forums, right, and obviously we're no privy to what players are earning, right? We don't have any inside knowledge, so we're not speaking for any position of authority here. But you see some of the figures that are being discussed on Hibsnet now. So somebody was posting, I think, $7,000 to $8,000 a week for Boyle, $10,000 a week for Mueller. So you've got some folk just dismissing that out of hand, saying there's no way we're paying those sort of wages. Jamie Jenkins, is more believable that we'd be paying that if you line that up with a target to double the players' wages wage bill?
Well, there's no player cap anymore, as I'm led to believe. That's kind of gone now. What I can tell you is that Anthony Stokes was on $5,000. That's an actual fact. So if he was on $5,000 at that point, what is the reason we couldn't be paying $7,000? I'm not sure 10 is thinking, but certainly I would say 7, 8, possibly $9,000 is definitely within our remit if you want to look at it like that. And then if you are going to keep if you're going to be paying $10,000, you're going to attract the better players. It's just like any line of work. If you're paying the money, you've got to get the better talent. It's simple as that.
It's almost expected to accumulate stuff that folk mentioned years ago, that we never ever done. If that's how we kept Boyle. That's presumably how maybe Porteous was thinking in this, but we're thinking about new contracts where in the past they wouldn't have even thought about it. Mm-hmm. Like they were just away. They would have been away to Celtic or Rangers already. Whereas now they're actually going, well, maybe I will. And who else signed it? Somebody else. There's been a few extensions recently, hasn't there? Like
there was like 5 of them just a few months ago. So
presumably that's not just because we're going, I will develop you. You know what I mean? It's a will develop you. I will pay a fucking wage, as well, because we've seen it before. They go, they leave. We lost Hibs fans that were like Murray and Riordan and that were Hibs fans for the day they were born, left to go to Rangers and Celtic for money. It wasn't just Caldwell's and all that. It was all of them. It was proper Hibs fans as well. So we're not just saying to these boys, aye, but on a promise here it is like, and there's a slice for your back pocket and all. So I don't think there's any doubt that player budget's increasing, and that's how we're keeping players.
Yeah, my worry is the crowds, because I know they're trying to get the crowds up and what have you. So we all know how fickle the Hibs support is. Probably going back to the wasn't the championship when Alec McLeish had this in with the first division at that time. The crowds were there every week because we're playing well and playing a good style of football. And if they can recreate that in the Premier League, and you're saying to people, well, whoever comes to Easter Road, we've got to give them a game. We're looking like we're going to win every single game. Then people will start coming back. But until we get over that same old Hibs, that does my fucking head in. Okay, it's just like, it's not the same old Hibs. I know, but this is what I'm saying. It gets on my last nerve. It's the same old Hibs. You've been beat or whatever. It's just like, it's not the same fucking old Hibs. You need to get over that mentality.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, like, every football club loses football matches. There's no a team on the planet, I think, that's never loses. I think, to the best of my knowledge, like, but.
Funnily enough, I was thinking this over the weekend. You were talking about like shite with there not being any football in the house. I'd watched quite a bit of football on Sky in the last few days. So there was like English football, and I watched Frankfurt against Dortmund as well. Frankfurt were 2-0 up at home to Dortmund, and I think they hadn't lost. Sorry, I don't think Dortmund had beaten Frankfurt in Frankfurt since about 2012 or something. They came back and won 3-2. If that was Hibs, people would be calling fucking typical Hibs. And it's not like they were just up against a really good team.
There's a boy, I'll not call him out, but there's a boy who goes on Hibsnet after Hibs get beat. So see, like a game like that, and it'll be, where's the ambition for the board? Right? Where's the club? Whether the club no ponying up, or how they're letting this happen, and what's going on with the culture. Never when we win, never come on saying, great example with the culture being spot on at the club today because we beat Rangers 3-1 at Hampden. Never been seen there. Lack of leadership. Brilliant amount of leadership beating the Rangers at Hampden. You never see there, but as soon as you get like a defeat, you lose to that. Straight on 3 posts with all the 3 different threads saying the same fucking thing. That's my bloody header. Anyway, how does it feel, John? Right, so we're of an era like us where we're used to Rob Petrie and Sir Tom Farmer, who had a stated aim, and this was, I think, verbatim, to spend £1 less than we take in. So the notion of speculating to accumulate wasn't on the radar at all. Does it feel weird seeing Hibs kind of splashing out money on young emerging talent? So we've spent money on Mackay, Nisbet, McGuinness, Melkerson, to name a few. Tate.
I know what you're getting at.
Sid Cup.
I wouldn't say it feels weird. It's certainly out of character.
Yep.
Because, like you say, because we're used to Petrie Farmer, I didn't realise that was a quote of theirs. I'm kind of glad that I never knew that. I'd have probably been more depressed than I ever was. But no, it's good. It's exciting. Like, how long do we get this feeling of excitement as Hibs fans? Because not like, I think we talked about it on Longbangers not that long ago when Martin Boyle signed his new contract. Like, I couldn't recall a player who had extended their contract not once but twice with Hibs. Sorry, never mind twice. I couldn't remember a player having ever done it once. Normally, like you mentioned, a bunch of players they're calling. Riordans, Murrays, etc. All these guys that were apparently Hibs fans that were leaving, that were going west because of higher wages on offer anywhere else. Clearly, the wages are available at Hibs. And also, like these, the young emergent talents that you're describing, I think that ties in with that original sort of AGM, if you like, when they were like this was their sort of I want to say stated plan. Their stated aim was to develop talent at Hibs and try and get the best out of them, have this mutually beneficial relationship, and then everyone would benefit from it. Players would move on, maybe get higher wages or opportunity to compete in, I don't know, Europa League, Champions League, just elsewhere. And then we would get the next crop of youngsters coming through Easter Road, or even just be competing at that higher level where we were now able to start buying similar players. And maybe players didn't have to leave to go and seek higher wages elsewhere because we were competing in Europe regularly. I fucking love it. I've wanted Hibs to do this for years. I've always, like, we had a chat, it was maybe about a year and a half ago, we were talking about, like, all the chat before was about making sure the infrastructure was in place. And it was boring. And now we've got the stadium, we've got the training centre, etc., etc., etc. And now we're actually starting to see, finally, and honestly, I can remember thinking back like 20 odd years ago, Like, it was just like, now's the time to start speculating. Now's the time to start speculating. It's finally happening. I'm almost 40-year-old, for fuck's sake.
But it's funny
finally
because
happening.
obviously I don't see Twitter very often and that, but the message boards, there's people almost disbelieving of it, or not disbelieving is the wrong word. It's just total like, well, there's no way we're paying that amount of money for him, and there's no way we're paying that salary or that fee, blah blah blah. And you're like, well, how do you think we're getting them? Like, how do you think like some young laddie for Norway's coming and signing, or an American? We'd have only been on 1,500 in the MLS, so but he's uprooting his life. Like, he's not. He's coming for something.
Aye.
You know what I mean?
It's not a fluke.
1,500.
It's not like we'd have been his only option either. Like, he'd go, I want to play in Europe. Where can I go? I can only really go to Hibs, so I'll just take whatever they offer. Hibs will need to have been competing against other clubs to get him.
It's been drummed into us that long with the Farman Petrie thing. And I'm not criticising the folk that are saying that, because it's just a dubious. It happened because it's been drummed into them maybe their whole life, or their whole Hibs supporting life, that you spend £1 less than you bring in.
It's difficult to marry.
Evens them, you know what I mean?
It's difficult to marry those two things up. So, Matt, you mentioned the poster on Hibs.net who talks about, like, goes through Hibs defeat bingo about ambition and structure and all that sort of shit. You kind of then have in the back of it start questioning, and I'm not saying that this person is doing that, but you can't have it both ways, really. You can't say, well, where's the ambition, and then the ambition comes.
They're nowhere to be seen. They're now. See, when all the money's getting spent, they're nowhere to be seen. Where they'll turn up, though, see if Belkerson turns out to be shite in like a year's time, they'll be on saying the sign flops, slaughtering them for it.
Right. So I think
I guarantee it.
If there's a culture change that needs to happen, it's amongst supporters. I think, Jamie, you mentioned it before about the same old Hibs shout. That does need to get to fuck. Like, we do need to start having more optimism.
I was just thinking about that,
and more able to deal with our emotions, like, especially when we get beat, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. It's not, you know what it is as well, it's years of laughing at Hearts for spending too much money on shite, and it's like they can't bring themselves to say, we're spending fucking money now. You know what I mean? Because we've been taking the piss out of them for that long. Oh, well, we might go bust as well now. Oh, you know what I mean? It's like such a negative sort of approach. I'm not saying it's everybody, obviously it's not everybody, but you know what I mean? There's a real negative outlook.
It's a huge portion of fans, and it's people, Hibs fans, who actually say Hibs that. Get in the fucking sea with you.
But the thing with it, where it's different is beforehand, when it was Petrie and Farmer, they went, you've got your season ticket money, and that's it. Pretty much that's what we've got to spend on the players. So you want a better team, you need to get more people in the ground. Where we are now is you've got Ron Gordon coming in, and this is just how I see it, right? And you look at the stuff there, so what 50% increase on income by this date and 100% by this date. Well, the only reason they're doing that is so that they can double the players' budget. So it's hand in hand to bring in people who, and we've talked about it on the podcast, like we've got sponsorships coming out of arse at Hibs now. That gives you the ability to go into the market and speculate on players without putting the club at risk, because you can fund it based on your income. So you still maybe are spending £1 less than you bring in principle, but you're bringing in that much more because you're doing that speculating. You sell a player for 3 million, you didn't just sell them for $500,000 because that's the first offer that comes. You go, fuck it, we've got him on a big contract, here's 3 million, and then you can have him, and that funds you to do your next transfers.
I think that's why I'm so firm on things like Martin Boyle, rather than saying like 2.5, 3 million. That's why we need to be going for 5, because there is that element of having paid him higher wages to secure him on the contract that we're trying to sell him for. So let's try and get away from that. And I'm not, apologies, Colin, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but if we get away from that notion that, I think that's as much as we get from him, now let's say to someone, no, we value him at 6, so that they pay us 4 rather than 3.
Yeah. Aye. I know. They'll not do it. We tried that with Doig in the summer, didn't we? But the Boyle thing, I just think he's aging that. That's what's going against us there. I find
it funny because I don't think that Nathan Patterson was a shit player. I actually thought he was a really good player, but he wasn't playing regularly for Rangers, and we've got a guy that's playing regularly for Hibs, and we're saying he's not worth that much. It's strange for me.
You're absolutely spot on, John. But is that us being more conservative with money in terms of, we're speculating it's 2-3 million that the club will accept, when in reality they're maybe saying actually no, we're wanting 5 million, hypothetically speaking. It's just one of the things, I think, because we have been so downtrodden over thingies. It's looking at the optimism and what have you, which I'm certainly looking at every angle with that. But I hope we do sell him for more money. We should be hanging on for more because he's that valuable a player.
I do think it's that small C conservatism. It's we've been handed peanuts for players in the past that now we're reluctant to go. No, I think he's worth much more than that. And if you want him, then that's how much you're going to have to pay. Like the Celtic stuff that I've been reading on Twitter recently, saying, he's only worth any more than 2. He's not worth this. Well, that's fine. Well, you don't get to have him then. You don't get to buy him. Like you'll miss out on him like you did on John McGinn. Like, just because you say that he's only worth 2 million doesn't make him any less valuable to Hibs. So if you didn't want him, that's fine. He'll stay at Hibs. That fucking suits me down to the ground.
But even the argument that they come out with as well and saying, are you paying him £5 million wages? You're like, the fuck are you talking about? He signed a contract. I didn't know what he's being paid. You didn't know what he's being paid. And that argument, shit. Was Barkas getting 5 million's worth of whatever when he was at Athens? Because he's barking.
But that kind of suggests that there's some sort of international fucking salary scale that says if you're on 5 million, you get paid this. And that's just fucking shite.
Nonsense. But they're all at it.
Aye.
Right, let's move on. So, Ron Gordon also said at AAG, we want a first-class team on and off the pitch. We'll upgrade where necessary and hire the best. So there's an interesting pointer. So hire the best. Are we seeing that with the appointment in Maloney? Is that an example of us? Or if you look at some of the backroom appointments that we've made with Ben Kensel coming on, are we hiring the best that we can get for the money? Or are we pushing the boat out to get them? What do we reckon, Colin?
I don't know. I mean, Maloney's not really proven, is he? He's not been a manager before, so we don't know if we're hiring the best. We're hiring someone that's saying the stuff that we want to hear and that Ron Gordon wants to hear about attractive football, because he wants to get people back in the stadium to fund all that other stuff we've just spoken about. We're taking a wee bit of a shot in the dark, aren't we? Really, it's hopeful, and obviously the see it's an upgrade, but we don't know if it's an upgrade until the end of the season, next season, whenever we decide to judge it. Off the field, though, I mean, I think based on what Kensel said on what podcast was he on? Was it Hibs.net? He was
Hibs Pod.
Aye. That one, he definitely had a bit of a swipe at the previous folk that were there without directly calling them out, but you could clearly see what he was getting at there, with some of the stuff, and it does seem like we've got a stand there that with hospitality in it that we can't use because it's done, and we tried to give it to the NHS, but we're hoping they were going to paint it for us or something, like, because the money was that bad or whatever it was, and they just went fucking keep it. So it's just lying there, we can't use it. So a lot of that's got to go under the old ownership. Obviously, not ownership, the old management. They got a lot of credit, but I think they got a lot of credit in the bank. We spoke about this before, I'm going over old ground, but they got a lot in the bank because they came in when we were at the lowest we could have been. There was no other way we could have went. And we got the cup on it. So they got huge credit in the bank because of all of that. But I think some of the off-field stuff is definitely getting an upgrade now with Kensel.
They definitely made inroads into improving the quality of guest on Hibs TV. I think we can all agree that.
Aye, Gordon Smart's good.
It's very good.
But they not extend the wardrobe budget to you, Matt, you know?
I didn't even get a bottle of water. We want the best players at the club in January, so this would have been January 2020. We made moves to try and bring in some of the best Scottish talent. We weren't successful, but that will continue. We've started to talk to 6 or 7 clubs worldwide to establish links and relationships. Who did we try to sign again? Nisbet.
Ross McCrory.
McCrory, was that in that January window?
That was Nisbet, you're right.
Nisbet we tried in Dunfermline, and kept him, didn't we? We couldn't quite get him. We got him in the summer instead. I think
McCrory might have been about that time as well, actually, wouldn't he?
aye. But we have seen them. We kind of spoke about a few there already earlier on about Hibs signing strategy. So McGuinness would definitely come under that bracket. Tate comes under that bracket. Will Nisbet,
Daniel Mackay.
Daniel Mackay, yeah, definitely. And then you look at the age group. Obviously, Doig came in to the club. I think at that point he hadn't broken into the first team, had he? Like back in 2020, he would have still been.
No, it was just that last season, wasn't it?
Aye.
2020 was so the AGM was that in the February 2020, and then it was the March that lockdown kicked off. Aye, so I don't think
he came to team in the July time. Because he would have been at Queen's Park probably at that time.
Yeah.
Aye.
Queen's Park.
So you would say, or is it fair to say we're delivering on that one? Ron Gordon's delivering on that aim at the moment.
Yeah, I think so. I can't think of anybody. Well, I suppose the one people would maybe say with Jason Kerr, but that missed out on, and I can't think of many others that you're looking out there in the league going like Scottish talent.
Yeah,
who've not tried to sign or who've not signed. So I think so.
I just think that was, if you look at the past, if you want to call them failures, Ross McCrory, Jamie McCart, Jason Kerr, if we were in for him, the Sealy Doig, this, that, and that is all fell at Graham Matthey's feet. And I don't know if his tactics in terms of basically trying to go in and lowball people has been the problem, because they basically said they had signed McCrory on TV, and they basically said they had sold Doig on TV, and both backfired, and both under his stewardship. So I think, is there really anybody of any kind of prominent figures that's making decisions at Hibs that was there previously are still there today? I think they're all gone. And it's the January window's been the best since I've known it.
And then going on to say, in terms of the first team, go to have the highest ever playing budget. They went over it in January, hopefully have it doubled by 2023. So we kind of covered that. The academy, they're looking at it over the next 12 months, looking at Hibernian Youth Club as a business outreach opportunity. So I can't remember what that one related to, but obviously I don't think anything's... I've not heard of Hibernian Youth Club. So that was maybe one that got put in the back burner because of COVID. And then the women's team, they're looking to integrate that at some point. So the women's team still isn't integrated into the football club properly, is it? And then invest in the football infrastructure, refresh and upgrade HTC, and build a full-size indoor facility. Target date 2025. Exploring options. So they're still well within time to deliver that. That one, I think it's still in the plans to do it. I'm not sure about HTC, whether that's had much upgraded in it in the meantime. Does anybody know?
No idea.
It looks like an old shed on the telly. Like when they're in the Astro pitch, it just looks like an old shed.
Have you been out to the training centre, Jamie?
No, just on telly, just when they're on the news or what have you. It doesn't look very...
it's a wee bit like...
You need to get yourself up there. It's fantastic.
It's maybe... Oh no, the training centre overall is fantastic, but the barn that Jamie's talking about is just a slightly better version of World Soccer at the Corn Exchange.
Aye. We went up and so it was Hibsnet give the club a load of money every year, right? The money that we take in for adverts and private membership and stuff like that. So basically what happens after Hibsnet pay their costs, we give Hibs a check, so it's like 10 grand a year, something like that. And Hibs then go, here's what we spent it on. Do you just want to come up and see? We'll give you like a wee tour of the training centre. You can see how we put it to use. And the last time we were up, they'd got the bras that they wear, the GPS bras. They were talking through basically the benefits of having them because Hibsnet funded them. There's a wee guy, and I can't remember his name. He does the tours, right? So when you do the training centre, he's obviously kind of used to doing it. He's got all the patter, and he goes into the barn bit, and he says, "Sometimes, kind of out in the countryside here, you get owls." He says, "Does anybody ken what the most common owl in the UK is?" And he ken what the answer is. He says, "It's the teat. The teat owl."
Teat owl, oh dear.
Can I ask a quick question?
It's terrible, man.
I remember there's two times I've had the tour, and he's cracked a joke at the same point in it both times.
The question I want to ask, Matty, is about the Hibs.net contribution. So you mentioned there that they funded the bras that they wear.
Aye.
I heard a wee rumour recently that I think it was one of Maloney's 2 games in charge that was the first game that they actually had like the wee bit, the wee sensor that goes in the back that tells them how much they were running. Did Hibs.net's contribution not fund them? Was it just the bras and not the full?
No, they included the whole bit. So we had who was it? Heckenbottom was in charge. So actually, when we were really struggling, Heckenbottom stayed back, and he came and did like a talk. So during the wee bit where they did the press conference, in fact, that's been redone. We're talking about upgrades at HTC. They've definitely done up the media room bit. But when we were in there, Heckenbottom came in and he was talking about how to use it. So it's about, it was mental. So they were talking about, you've got how far a player's run on the pitch. That's kind of like the main thing, is you can test their stamina or their work rate or whatever, but they can also use it for, in training. And they gave examples. They said maybe do training, and as they're coming off, they'd have that data live, and they'd say, right, you've got 4 players there that haven't got enough, not done enough running, basically not got enough miles in their legs. So rather than them finishing training at that point, they would get like an extra session to make sure their fitness was at the level it needed to be. And things like if a player wasn't playing on match day, do you know, like you see them out at half time, sometimes it's players that are like subs or after the game, and they get like a workout. Oh, and that's how they measure it, to make sure that they're keeping their fitness at the right level. But the players were competitive with it, and they would say they didn't know what would be like at the bottom for kind of distance run or speed and all the rest of it, but they could time sprints. And I make it sound boring, but it was fascinating seeing somebody who actually cares what they're talking about it.
It was Lennon that didn't like them, eh? He did he have them, and he was like, I like it, use my eyes better. No.
Aye.
Remember, I was just going to say, like, sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
Sorry, no, you go, mate.
No, I was just going to say, like, almost felt like a wee bit of dafty for asking that there, but it was good to get the answer and the sort of the evidence, if you like, because these are the rumours that often rear their ugly head. So it's nice to be able to quash it straight away.
Aye, it's good data at Hibs for all that kind of thing. Even if see, like, so Hibs paid for new weights for the gym as well, because they did a presentation.
Weights are pricey, by the way. Have you ever looked at them online? Fuck.
They did a. So with the tour, the boy who does the conditioning, I don't know if he's still there, was saying that basically the players had outgrown the weights that were there, because they had such a gym culture now that they weren't getting any benefit. They needed to upgrade them, otherwise they were just wasting their time. And he said the youth teams, because they use it, had gone from historically kind of being bullied by some of the other teams. Hearts were the ones that they compared. He said, but now, because of the way that they condition them all, Hibs players, when you look at the youth levels, bully Hearts, like they're stronger physically, faster than them, or that kind of thing, and it's borne out in the results at age group level as well.
Actually, now that you mention it, I don't know if or who Hibs conditioning person was, but he was one of the Hibs new conditioning person. I forget his name.
Spanish.
They came in with Maloney.
Maloney. Aye, I thought that was quite interesting. It reminded me of Roger Propos when Collins was in charge, because I remember Collins saying, I can't make you the best, but I can make you the fittest. And what I saw in the first couple of games that Maloney had in charge, there was a lot more running there. So you're going to need that conditioning, you're going to need that stamina, 100%. Especially for the sort of the final minutes of the game.
Do you not mind that Gary Flanagan was the conditioning guy when Stubbs was there? Because I remember being a thing, and he was talking. It wasn't Flanagan. It was actually talking about. It was, who was the other guy that was kind of always behind the scenes, loved to talk. Can't remember his name. Come from Falkirk. He was Dempster's like. Aye.
Yeah.
And he was talking basically on the basis of, like, Dave Brailsford was talking when he was at Team Sky for cycling. It's all about making the thing is making yourself better. And Lewis Stevenson had scored the goal or whatever. He goes, that's down to Flanagan giving that extra bit of the yard or making him run in a certain way and what have you. Which was dead interesting to listen to. And it's obviously working back then. It does work, but it is keeping it up. And if Lennon didn't like it, then that's kind of what they thought at that point when he came in. So good to see that whoever it's an Italian or Spanish person that's come in with Maloney. I was delighted with that.
Right, just conscious of the time. We've got the next thing for the AGM is the big wow. So, the idea was, and obviously this one definitely was impacted by COVID because we couldn't get into the stadiums for the next season. But so the first game next season, we want you to walk in and say wow. So they're putting in a high fidelity audio system, which is in place now because you can hear what the tannoy, the stadium announcer Barry is saying, even from our seats, large HD video screens, which are in. Digital video ribbons, which aren't in yet, production expertise, and improving signage, painting internally and externally, and branding around the stadium. So, Jamie, how do you think we're getting on with all of those things? How's the stadium looking now?
What is digital printing ribbons? What are they? I've read that.
Digital ribbons, I think they are kind of
it's like flashing adverts you go between the tiers.
Aye,
right.
That's like along the middle of the west stand that we need to be in, and probably the famous five and the Dunbar end.
Okay, so the things that I can see, I do like the new screens. I think they're really good. I never really paid much attention to the tannoy system previously, so I couldn't really get what everybody was moaning about. But people seem to be happy with it, so that's fine. But aside from that, the stadium's kind of stayed the same for me, or certainly over in the east. I think for his vision for what he would like to produce it, or Ron Gordon, is to get people to the stadiums early, which is obviously why he's campaigning to try and bring alcohol back into stadiums, which I fully agree with. Because I think with the concourse in the east along the ground, it's massive and it can all be opened up. So if you had people able to get a drink and had local food stalls and what have you, people and games for kids, people would go early to games. I certainly would, and I would take my own kids to that rather than sitting in a local bar near it and bringing more money to the club. But I think those changes, because of COVID, are still in the wings and waiting to be added into the stadium, or certainly at least. I don't know how it is in the West.
They've done up, obviously, the kiosks are all changed, aren't they? They could be given a good old...
still the same slow staff, though.
Aye. The white seats are in HFC.
Yeah.
So that's all better. The tannoy was shocking before now. Maloney complained.
I never noticed that. I'm not going to lie.
Aye. It might be joked there when we had Barry on and we said, like, if you have to expect it to sound like... But he didn't sound like a proper person.
You can't deny he's done all that. And obviously the seats the fans done. Kieran Power got the folk in, didn't he, do that? And
aye.
I think the outside you could do a bit of spruce up and a bit of painting. I've not seen any branding outside, I don't think. But there's still work to be done.
There's a phone box. There's a phone box on Easter Road on Leith Walk that's got like a big transfer of David Gray lifting the cup now.
All right.
And we were talking to Greg McEwen, do you remember? And he was talking about
plans for the trams.
Aye, so basically they have this idea, and I don't know if it was just like here's something that we're thinking of, for example, or whether it was like a bona fide, this is what we're going to deliver. But the idea was to have like this, like a tram stop that's like, stop here for Easter Road, and when you get off the tram, there's all like Hibs branding all the way up to the stadium. So it's like kind of that's the route that you would take to go up, and it would be all Hibs stuff all the way. Which would be pretty smart.
The only real place it would make sense to do that is Albert Street. So unless you're going to come round by a thingy, but that Albert Street's a tough sell to get anything in to make it look smart. It's fucking rubbish.
Right, we also had ticket and ambitions increase season tickets by 10%. Aim for 23-24 to be a sellout season. They'd love to reduce away allocations. As things stand now, how likely are you? Do you think it is, John, that we would sell out that season?
Do you know? I think the biggest challenge is that even if we have a good remainder of this year, a good season next year, I don't think that we're going to achieve that, and I think that might just be the pessimism from having seen successful Hibs sides before and not having season ticket holders kind of flock in their thousands and get to the stage where we regularly reduced the away allocation.
Aye.
I don't know what the answer to that is, and it's something that I do genuinely spend time scratching my head over, trying to think about ways to get folk into the ground, like Jamie mentioned there about spending more money at Easter Road. I'd fired over a couple of ideas to Greg at Hibs, and it is like, I don't know whether it's because we're so ingrained in football culture in Scotland, where it's you go to the pub before the game, you go to the game maybe 5 minutes, 2-3 minutes before kickoff, and that you only stay for the duration of the football, and then you leave again afterwards.
Not even the duration.
Well, not even the duration. I see you're talking about.
It takes too long to get to the stands. You need to leave early.
Beat the traffic, Hibs supporters club. But I know I definitely. So Jamie mentioned there things like farmers markets. I'm easy Aussie about the alcohol, but I can understand that it's an attraction. It's a revenue stream.
I was scrolling down that thread earlier. Sorry, John. Just to add to your point, though, there was something in that thread about doing a pub bar called the Terrace or something at the corner of the east, and I can't find it. I'm scrolling around here, which would maybe say instead of got the pub, come here. There's a pub here.
Yeah,
but
I got kiboshed by Leanne Dempster in one of the AGMs I was at. She was like a flat out nut. That's not going to happen. It would cost too much to set up and to run. You could have pop-up bars. There's loads of stuff.
Aye.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what the deal was with the pop-up bars and stuff before, but the thing I was going to finish on there was I think that increasing season tickets, I think the onus is on us. It's not about how successful Hibs are on the park. It's about us. It's about fans turning up. It's about fans buying season tickets. It can't just be. We can't talk about Hibs class and then as soon as things get a wee bit tricky or a wee bit tough on the pitch, we go, fuck it, I'm not going to go.
Aye. But it's an easier sell when the club are doing well. You're like, if you've got, like Jamie said, if you're going to expect him at least to be competitive in a game, do you know, like it, and I think that's where folks started giving up on Jack Ross. Is that there was games that you've gone and we weren't competitive and we didn't go and give him a really good game.
I think each of us here will agree though that at any point given a season or at any point during a manager's tenure, there's going to be a sticky spell.
Aye.
And I think because of arguably the weakness of the board in the past, any time Hibs fans started to walk, they started to vote with their feet. That was it. The board went, oh well, fuck, we better get the fans back, and possibly because of that thing that you mentioned before about spending £1 less than they earn.
Yeah,
they just sacked the manager. That was it. And I thought that was going to be different this time around. I mean, I didn't want to cover all ground, but I thought it was going to be different this time around with Jack Ross. I thought that the board were going to say, no, we'll see you and we'll raise you and we'll back Jack Ross a little bit further. But as it turns out, we've got a new manager and fully behind Sean Maloney. But I do think the onus is on the fans to get involved and stay involved.
Aye. They also said that they want to target an average cup attendance of 10,000. So if you look at the ticket pricing for the Cove game, that's £10 a ticket for season ticket holders. Can't really argue with that, can you?
No.
So without sounding like a broken record, like I think we've heard this argument a number of times before from Hibs fans. You should reduce the prices. You should make it a £5 a ticket or a £10 a ticket, and you'll get thousands upon thousands coming through the gates. Well, this is I think what do they call it, the litmus test. Now's the opportunity to turn up and sell out the stadium. Assuming it goes ahead, assuming restrictions are lifted and all that sort of stuff. Hibs have made
Put your money where your mouth is now, isn't it?
Yeah. I get involved.
I could give you about 4 or 5 reasons why it's not a great example of it though, because it's before January payday for many. It's skinnest month of the year, freezing cold, live on the telly, Thursday night, lower league opposition. There's pick any excuse for that. For everybody, it's live for everybody on telly. It's not just on Sky or BT or Premier even. It's on BBC One or BBC Two. So there's many reasons that it's not going to be a good test of that. Would be a later round one at home, which wouldn't sell out. A quarter final, Motherwell last year wasn't a big crowd. So quarter final at home on a Saturday. Try that.
Just to play devil's advocate, the reasons that you mentioned there, you can watch on TV, but you're not going to get the opportunity to see the new signings in the flesh. All the folk that say that when they come back, well, Jack Ross was in charge, well, there's a new manager there. There's a whole bunch of positive reasons for people to turn up, for Hibs fans to turn up and watch Hibs.
Aye. Okay,
No, I
right,
agree, but I'm just saying how you kind of compare it. Like, it's not.
we're going to move us on and pick up the pace for the last few. Just conscious that we're on another epic episode like we did last week. So looking at the segment stadium and pricing to go with it. So that happened, and now we have some of us in gold seats, some of us in silver, some of us in bronze. Season ticket holders are our most valuable supporters. Will be more engagement and events with them. So they've no delivered on that one, I didn't think.
No.
Because I didn't think that there's any more engagement with season ticket holders than there was before. And in fact, I would go so far as to say some of the promises that they made to season ticket holders for renewals this season have not been delivered.
Yeah. No, they've not. But that's one they've definitely struggled on there. I think even down to the fact this is that season tickets would remain at the same price, but yet they went up for anybody that used the payment plan.
Yeah,
because they started charging you extra for that, so they didn't keep it the same. So it's not just not delivered; it's actually not done what they said. Completely went against it. So I think there's one there that they've missed out on, and the numbers have dropped. If you even look at other clubs, they rewarded, if you like, their fans for buying a season ticket throughout the pandemic, whereas we just went, well, fucking sign up for it. You knew what you sign up for, which is true. But like, even it was like, I had four accesses to Hibs TV last year. I never used one. 3 of them lay unused. If I was a Hearts fan, I would have been refunded the effectively 3 season tickets for not using the Hibs TV or the Hearts TV in that case. For the live game. I think Motherwell just said there's a free season ticket this year. I know it's different numbers we're talking about, but Hearts is a comparison because it's similar numbers. So there's a few things there that might have bought them a bit money in the bank, if you like, with some fans. They gave them a bit of credit for that. Not to say you would have to accept it and take the money, but to offer it, I think would give you a bit of a wee tick in the box for a lot of people.
Aye, that credit. They also wanted to bring kiosk operation in-house, which I think they've done. Develop Hibs East Road kiosk brand, good products and well-trained staff. Jamie. By the way, I've had pies at the new kiosks, and they are well better than the ones that were there before. So I would definitely give them a tick there.
So you can actually get them at the foil this time. Normally when you're picking them up, those fall apart.
It doesn't happen.
It was decent. The goal was to get 650,000 revenue, £300,000 in profits. We have no idea what they did there. Corporate sponsorship, want to really grow. Want to try and get 5 major partners at circa £200,000 each. So on the face of it, looks like we've delivered 5 at least big sponsorships.
500 big sponsorships.
Greg McKeown's done a brilliant job.
I'd say that's probably the thing that I've been most impressed with off the pitch is that being confident enough to go and sell the club and get value for money for sponsorships, and actually I have that revenue stream coming in,
and also addressing the historic stuff where there was branding at the stadium that wasn't being paid for. I think you highlighted that on the down the slope interview that you did. Was it the taxis? Taxis are
no, it was a car garage,
leaving car hire or something like leaving cars. Want to establish Hibs as the leading Edinburgh sports brand, which is an interesting one as well. Obviously, there's only really you've got the rugby, but in terms of big sports brands, Hibs and Hearts in it, and you want to establish Hibs as the leading one. But do you think it's hard to kind of gauge that? Like, I don't know what Hearts branding is like. I didn't see that much about them, other than they're very good at telling us how much money they take in for their fans.
I think they need to start selling more merchandise out with just at the club shop. If you're wanting to do better in that respect, it has to be, if you're going into one of the sports shops in town, they've all got Celtic and Rangers, all of them. Yeah. And we've not got any representation in these places.
Yeah, even Sports Direct and that, nothing at all.
Yeah, nothing at all.
Well, they did the pop-up shop at the Gale. So you could go out of the Easter Road and pick up kind of official stuff. And that was a no bad idea. I think that probably gives them a wee flavour of whether there's merit. They've done it twice, so they've just shut it again, haven't they, for this year, but this Christmas and last Christmas. We went in at Colin, didn't we? We went for a coffee, went in. Picked up a wee face mask. It's good for
Yep.
our skin wonders.
I think
They need to do more of that, in my opinion.
am I right in saying, Matty, that there was method behind placing it at the Guile? It was about tapping into the demographic. Was it northwest Edinburgh and beyond, like where the supporters would come from? So I appreciate what you're saying, Jamie, as well. Like I would love to see more folk in Edinburgh walking about, like especially like Leith, Princess Street, and that walking about in Hibs tops and seeing a Hibs shop there. But I don't think we necessarily have the pull at the moment to have folk go in. Like I think for like Rangers and Celtic, for example, they've got that long-standing success branding. What's the word I'm looking for?
Bigotry. Profile. Like people know who they are, and I'm not saying that people don't know who Hibs are. I'm saying that we haven't had that consistent third place finish, if you like, for our top four finish for long enough that people know who we are to go and buy the strips because they know who Hibs are when they come over on their holidays or whatever.
Which I fully appreciate, but what I'm basically getting at is that if you go places that are expanding, like a lot of people from Edinburgh moving out of Edinburgh to Musselburgh, Trinent, blah blah blah, East Lothian, Fife, this, that, and the other. Now, if my kid wants a strip or whatever, I'm not going to come all the way into Leith to buy a strip. It's too far. So you need to make it more accessible for people. I know they're not going to have open shops in each individual place. It just doesn't make any sense. But there must be a way to have an outlet where you're able to sell your wares that are not just in one place in the centre, near the centre of Edinburgh.
What about, because I know that the objection to that would be rates, be the cost that it would have, the amount that it would cost to put these shops in different places. But what if there was like a mobile Hib shop that was to come around and visit different communities in and around Edinburgh?
Like a fish fan.
Can you not just fucking sell Hib strips in JD Sports?
Aye, Tesco, surely you could get it. Aye.
You didn't need to have it. It doesn't need to be a Hib shop, but just needs to sell Hib stuff.
Yeah.
But they were saying that they were too expensive, so that they would have to pay them a fee to take the strips to sell them, and if they didn't, they had to take them back, and they didn't get any of the fees back. But that they still have to do that, speculate to accumulate. People are just going to go, I'll just get my Celtic top, a Rangers top, whatever.
Aye, I always think they should have one over. Dunfermline's got a massive Hib support here, like because it's all folk like me that moved over from Edinburgh, and then their families. I think you could get away with an outlet of some description, like a small one here, and probably do quite well with.
Kelly should do every Christmas.
Same, John.
Instead of the Coca-Cola truck, send out a big Hibs truck, green and white Santa. Go back to basics.
Aye.
No, the Coca-Cola version.
The mad Hibs are coming. Definitely go for it. Right, so let's wrap it up then. We've got a score out of 15 you need to give for Ron Gordon, along with some element of rationale as to why you've given your score. I think we've covered how we've done against the targets that he himself set out. So for Ron Gordon, let's see if my pen works. I'll take a note of this because we can review it in future dates. John, you go first. What's your score out of 15 and why?
So starting with 15, like I said last week, and then I took marks away for shortcomings and then added bonus points where I just fancied it. So starting with 15, taking bonus points off because there's no Peruvian and there's no triple ply in the bogs, and probably should take off another point because there have been some things that we discussed there that weren't delivered. In fact, I'm going to take off another point because there was just some objectives there that were just a wee bit too woolly for me. There were things that were specific and measurable, like we want to finish top 4, we want to compete in Europe, done that, but then there was other stuff about being proud and being the best, and it was just shite. So I'm going to give him, I think that works out as 12.
12 for you, right? Jamie, you're next.
I'm going to go with a 12 as well, and I just think that he's been caught on hot because of the whole COVID thing. It's slowed his ability to get things moving as quickly as he would have wanted to. But even under that, played an absolute blinder with taking out the loss of earnings insurance during COVID. And any other football club that done that, so well done, Ron, on that.
It's only quiet on that front, no, eh? He said it, but I've not heard, I've not seen anything. We need to see the accounts for him coming in.
It's maybe not finished yet, the way they maybe
there was
still
no initial
claim.
pay.
2 million or
wasn't
something
there?
they said, wasn't it?
I think they had an initial pay of like 200 grand or something, and they were chasing the rest. But I
2 million minutes, I know, overall, something like that. So, and he is delivering. I think, as I say, he has definitely given the green light to go and sign players and was let down by the people who were invested to do that. And as I say, I think things are going. We need to establish ourselves as the best of the rest going forward, and then you'll start to see a different change. I know Maloney, I was trying to get onto that earlier on, is a bit of a risk, but a calculated risk, I think. So we just need to wait and see why. So a 12 for me. I would score higher, but things can always be better.
And Colin, for you?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. Came in, cleared the debt, put the money. He's putting his money where his mouth is with the players. We're keeping players we wouldn't have kept in the past. We're bringing in players we wouldn't have even entertained bringing in the past. You put the TV screens in. We're top 4, challenging for top 4. We've been in Europe. We'll hopefully be in Europe again. And then there's the other stuff that we've already spoken about. So that he's not delivered. So some questions still maybe about the transfer window. What was the problem there? Obviously, we've sacked a manager and a director of football or whatever he was for it. Then we brought his son in, which isn't great like a great perception. But then it might be, by the looks of things, we're bringing in bodies. So maybe it depends how they perform, because that's where the next level of criticism will come. If these boys are all duds, then that's his fucking laddie that's signing the play. You know what I mean? That's where it's going to go. So
yeah, definitely.
That's a wary one there. So I would settle on 11.
11, okay, so you're going down a wee bit. So I would say I'd probably go with a 12 as well, right? And on the basis for that is I think we have improved as a club overall. For me, things like the greenest club in Scotland, I think are important. Obviously, not as important as success on the pitch, but I think we've also, in relatives terms, delivered that. So look at a cup record that probably stands up against virtually any team in Scotland's over the last couple of years for the amount of semi-finals and finals we've been in, getting into Europe, finishing third, and comfortably third as well. It wasn't like we scraped it. We were, what was it, 6 points or something in the end? Or?
No, 7. No matter how many
7
things
points.
people try and say it was, though, it was comfortable.
Aye, it was comfortable. And we've not had the best of seasons this season, but we're still not out of touch. And the season's still got a lot of football to be played in it. So I think he's putting his money where his mouth is. I like what we're doing with the signings. That actually something that really excites me. I think even the back in Maloney, so going out and getting Maloney, and I accept that he is a punt, and we didn't know how he'll pan out. But to go and get Maloney, Caldwell, who wouldn't have been cheap either, I wouldn't have thought, because Caldwell's been a manager in his own right. And then the Italian guy whose name escapes me.
And they both had a job. It wasn't like they were out of work.
Aye,
So
that's you're bringing in a whole backroom team. I think my observation would be that he recognises the importance of having people who are good at what they do in the right positions. And I think that's what we've got at Hibs now. Very, very deliberate strategy. I think we're starting to see the fruits set now. I'm excited for the second half of the season. So I think at 12, I think the ticket pricing is a bit Cove Rangers aside. I think they made a mistake with the segmenting the season tickets for this season, having done it last season when we couldn't use them. So if you had a gold ticket last season, you paid more to no get in the ground than somebody who had a silver or a bronze ticket. This season they should have went, Kim, what? We'll do that for next season. We'll just blanket it. And then no delivering on the season ticket stuff that they promised is also a wee negative. So 12. So I think on average 12 is the score we're going for. We've got 3 12s and 11. Okay, well, if you agree with us or disagree with us, get in touch on Twitter or Hibs.net or The Bounce or wherever you see us. John, what you...
I just remembered Matt Reid saying that he was going to give him a 2 because he's not brought Slivka back.
Aye, he did say that.
That tickled me.
Aye. I give him an extra point for not bringing Slivka back, so I'll take him up to 13. Have that, Matt. Anyway, right, Jamie, Colin, John, thanks very much for your time tonight. I really enjoyed that. It was actually quite, I hope it was enjoyable. Listen, I enjoyed talking about it. Nice wee reflection back on on the plans and where we've come. We'll be back on Thursday with Short Bangers, and we will need questions this week. Even though we kind of pumped out about 400 episodes last week, we will need more questions this week. So join us for that, and until then, we'll see you next time.
County line, I pledged upon. Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee.